Hello everybody, it's Kirsty. I'm sorry that I look like a journalist with this up here, but I'm sure you know by now I can't hear too well, so I usually hold the mic like this. Okay, welcome to my recording studio. It's my patio, the extension of my house, which is just here. And that's the rainforest behind. There's lots and lots of natural heritage rainforest behind, because I live in a beautiful Queensland. Okay, so let's move on. So today, my dog's going to interrupt already. Today we're going to have a look at this. I'm doing a call for help for all of the true crime aficionados and everybody that is interested in following the Laurie Vallow, Chad Daybell, Alex Cox, JJ and Tylee and Charles Vallow murders. I would like to do the event chart for when Tammy Daybell died. Now, I know that she died on October the 19th, 2019 in Idaho, Salem, and apparently of natural causes, just during the night, but that doesn't give us a time, and I've looked everywhere and I cannot figure out a time. Now, what I even could do with is a time that maybe he rang somebody the next day to tell them, a 911 call, or the ambulance, or a friend, or anything like that, or any idea of when she would go to bed normally. And anyone that knows anything that may differ in the fact that she went to bed, because maybe she didn't go to bed as normal. Maybe she died earlier and we only know what we've been fed. But so I want to do a chart for that and see how she died. I don't believe that she just died of natural causes. I think they're going to find I reckon they're going to find similarities with Alex Cox. I think they've been poisoned, personally. It feels like that's the only way that this could actually happen. So I'm going to pop up a chart for Tammy Daybell at midnight, because I'm assuming she's asleep by then, or whatever's happened would have happened. Then the next day at like 9 a.m. when we know 100% that she is deceased. Maybe 10 a.m. at that time, because she's rang somebody and he's rang somebody. She's definitely deceased by then. Anyway, I'm going to do a couple of different charts and have a look, but I really want a specific time, and if anybody has that, I would really, really appreciate it. As you know or may not know, Tammy was alive when JJ and Tylee were murdered. So that adds a whole new thing to it. I think we all know where this is heading anyway, but let's have a look at the charts. Alright, here we have 3 charts as per usual. I have the 19th at 10 p.m. That's too late. Let us do this. 2 charts, not 3. So I have 2 charts here. On the 18th, which was the night before that she was pronounced dead the next day at 11:50, so still on the 18th. And then on the 19th, which is the time that I believe that she actually was murdered or passed away of natural causes, either or. Anyway, so the first one would imagine by nearly 12 she's in bed, or, God forbid, something's already happened. But in this instance we see, let's get the drawer, zoom this in. So this is 11:50 on the night that Tammy Daybell was asleep, apparently, and passed away in her sleep. So the ascendant is her, and that's 23 degrees of Cancer. Now, Cancer is a person at home. Okay, Cancer rules the 4th house, which is the home. So it makes sense that this is her asleep at home. Now, if we look to a perpetrator or the natural enemy of her body in this instance, it's in Capricorn, as always. It's always in Capricorn, isn't it? When it's in Capricorn, it shows us that the male authority is something to do with something. Now, if it's not that, and it is just a natural cause of death, we actually want to have a look at the 6th house as well, because the 6th house, which is this one here, is the house of health. So Jupiter is in there, which is actually a benefic. So that shows that her health was actually quite good. It seems that there was nothing wrong with her. Saturn in there and Pluto in there. Now, they're not conjunct each other. They are, but they're quite far away, these two. Saturn in Capricorn. Capricorn is the bones and the teeth and our physical self, and Pluto is sort of more our reproductive organs and all different scorpionic type of areas. Nothing really that kills you. If we saw the sun here, perhaps I'd say, okay, a heart attack. Or if there was some Venus and Virgo and Mercury in there, for example, I would think, okay, there's been something wrong with the lungs or an assimilation and digestion, or something's gone wrong there. But that doesn't seem to be the case at this point. So there's the moon, the co-ruler, and also the ruler of her at this time in the 12th house. The 12th house, this area here, this house, and the moon being in it, and the moon representing Tammy, shows that she is asleep. The 12th house is sleeping. It can also be kidnapped and disappearing, but in this case, she's not. She's in her bed asleep at 11:50 on the 18th, I believe. Now, I've popped in the asteroid DNA because she was exhumed and we're looking for evidence. Not we, they are looking for evidence. The asteroid DNA is always helpful. So here it's in the 3rd house of Virgo and communication. So it's ruled by Mercury, ruled by discussion, communication. Things will come out about how she died. I don't know whether it would be specifically DNA, but somebody may talk, and then that could open up what happened. Now I'm losing my voice, and that's usually when the truth is around. Excuse me a second. Okay, so at this point, is there any relationship between the descendant and the moon? Well, the moon is forming a quincunx, which looks like this. And it's one sign less than an opposition. So it's forming a quincunx, which is a difficult adjustment between the perpetrator or the thing that's affecting her body and her. But there is actually no connection between Saturn, the ruler, and the moon. So if we look down here, here's the moon, we go down to Saturn, and there's nothing in there. So there's no aspect between those two at that point in time. Now we'll move on to the 19th at 4 a.m. Note here, the moon is at 27 degrees of Gemini. I'm sure those of you that know the charts are going to know exactly where the moon is going to end up here at 4 a.m. And here we go, 4 a.m. at the 19th. The moon has moved to 29 degrees of Gemini. Okay, so the moon co-rules Tammy. The ruler of Tammy at this point is Virgo, and the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. Okay, Mercury is in the 3rd house, where DNA was originally, when she was asleep. I like that. Remember I was talking about Mercury? It's right there now, so that's good. So Mercury at 20 degrees of Scorpio. So we have some Scorpio. Sorry, I have an ant biting me. We've got some Scorpio influence there. Now, this is very interesting. The DC. It is at 11 degrees of Pisces with Neptune right on the public enemy. Neptune represents poisoning, and Pisces does as well. Now, Neptune this is the transits that we're having right now on the outside. So while he's going through trial and while we're waiting to see what happened with Tammy, Neptune is sitting in the house of the public enemy, the open enemy, and the lawyer and everything. So I think it will be exposed that there was poison in the system. Now, at 16 degrees, it does make a trine, which is 120 degrees, to the ruler, to Tammy. So we have a relationship, a strong relationship, between these two. A trine is a triangle and 120 degrees. So we've got the relationship between those. Now, the ruler of this 7th house, the co-ruler is Neptune, but the traditional ruler is Jupiter. And it's hard to see, but there's a red line here from Jupiter at 21 to DNA at 21 in the 1st house. And then also it makes an aspect to this Neptune. So this Jupiter in its own sign of Sagittarius and then Neptune in its own sign of Pisces is a double indicator of poisoning. And then what I also see is on the 8th house cusp is Aries. So that's Mars ruled. Mars is in the 2nd house there, opposing the 8th house cusp. So that shows me that I think that it's possible there was also some type of another wound or acute infection due to something that happened to her. That's also another possibility if she wasn't actually poisoned, is acute infection, but through something that she had prior, so she wouldn't have been healthy. But so this Jupiter was showing us that she was healthy while she was asleep. Now it's in the 4th house of the end of the matter, the resting place, and also the ruler of a perpetrator, somebody at home. So as I don't really need to say who I think that would be, but we can see that the perpetrator has possibly given poison, possibly there has been an acute reaction to it, intense fever, infection, all sorts of different Mars-type acute things that go along with it. And the ruler of a perpetrator is in the 4th house of the home. Okay, now DNA here is at 8 degrees of Libra at the moment. Mars, which is the ruler of the house of death, the 8th house, down here is at 9 degrees. I really hope when DNA goes to 9 degrees of Libra that's when we find out what happened. That's my hope. Now, some other things we have here. Transiting Mars right here is going to be going into, it's in Aries at the moment. Where are we? Mars, 0 degrees. So Mars is at 0 degrees of Aries. So as it travels through this 8th house of death, we're going to find out a whole lot of information about what happened. It's two people could have been involved in this as well. Do you know, I actually get the feeling that Alex Cox had something to do with this too. That's my opinion. Oh, that's all. But that's so two people and two different avenues, and also exhuming their body is very much 29 degrees of Gemini, because it's burying her one way and then later on at the very end process digging her up and finding out something different. That's two scenarios. So what else do we see? Okay, so at the time when she passed away, Jupiter was at 21 degrees of Sagittarius. Now Jupiter is at 24 degrees of Capricorn. When she passed away, Pluto was at 20 degrees of Capricorn, but now Pluto is at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So they're both, whoops-a-daisy. So they're both conjunct very tightly. So Jupiter's moved in this time all the way and caught up with Pluto. Jupiter is representative of the person that did this to her, or the thing that did this to her, the illness that did this to her, if that is the case. And it's brought these two together. Pluto is transformation and change and death and all those things, but with Jupiter it's an understanding of what happened at that time of death. It brings together these two areas really closely. There's also a semi-sextile between Jupiter and Pluto as well. So there was an aspect when she died, and then now there's a very, very tight aspect. So I really do believe that there's going to be some answers soon. And yeah, I can't help but notice that, like I said, I believe that Neptune there, it rules all things poison, chemicals, medications, alcohol, drugs, anything that is to do with poisoning is that. Now, DNA being in the first house at the time of her death, and she was deceased at this time anyway, even if she didn't die at this time. This is just my chart, like I said. But DNA being in the first house there is good, because that shows me that there's some evidence left on her body. This is her body, the first house. Okay, so DNA is even making an aspect with the ruler of her, Mercury. 21 and 20. Okay, so we've got a nice 60 degrees. There's an easygoing aspect between DNA in Virgo, which is the ruler of, which Mercury is the ruler of, and then Mercury is at 20 degrees, forming this nice aspect in the third house, where so her body will communicate the evidence that they require. And then that attachment to Neptune up here will show them that the perpetrator or the body had whatever inside of it. Okay, so we have a really neat connection between all these, and as always, a 29-degree moon. So one interesting thing that I did see is the Pisces at 16 degrees of Pisces, actually at 1519, there is a fixed star called Alcanar, and that actually means success in public office or religious benefits and access to another realm. It also represents the mouth of the river, but I found that really interesting, that it was religious benefits and access to another realm. So it screams Chad Daybell, in my opinion. That's the fixed star Alcanar. There's plenty of other fixed stars that we could look at. The moon, let's just have a look. 29 degrees of Gemini. The closest fixed star is Polaris, and that is sickness, trouble, loss, affliction, and spiritual powers, which is strange. But it does say sickness, so that is something to remember as well. So we can't completely say, look, she didn't die of natural causes, but there is a lot of indicators to say that something actually triggered off an acute illness, which I believe spiked her temperature and then just caused failure in her entire body. Feels like organ failure, actually. It would have started with the heart, I think, or through the blood, then the heart and the organs failed. So I think they may find it hard to see the cause of death, but if they're looking for particular poisons, I'm sure they're going to find a similarity in poisons amongst all of these. Unfortunately, I don't think they can find that in JJ entirely, but if they could, I think they'd probably find poison in their system too. I'd say they have a specific method of killing these people, in my opinion. Okay, if anybody else has any further closer times, please let me know and I'll redo it. It's not going to be far off, it's going to be between this time, but let me know and we'll have a look. All right, thanks everybody. You take care and see you next time. Bye.